Good morning. Hi everyone, it's Tanja from Tanja Kraus Horsemanship here, and I am joining you from Surfers Paradise. I'm currently up here on the Gold Coast waiting for the Australasian Equine Science Symposium to begin, and it's 3 days of lectures and learning all things equine. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really excited to be here, and we kick off at 9 o'clock. What I wanted to join you this morning for and talk to you about this morning was something I've really been thinking about over the last couple of days, and it's probably something that I've spoken about before, and I think it's worth revisiting because it's something that I see. It's very prevalent in the equine industry, no matter what our discipline, no matter what we do, and that is the kind of language that we're using around our horses. So, but not around our horses, but in reference to our training, in reference to our progress and things like that. So what I see a lot of is whether it's face-to-face interactions or whether it's comments on Facebook or whatever it is, sometimes when horses are struggling and we feel like we need to maybe do some ground exercises to help the horse through it, or maybe do some exercises that they've known for a long time, like foundation exercises or things like that, which is the right thing to do. That's obviously why we have those exercises and why we have them in our toolbox. What I see a lot of people doing is saying, oh, I had to go back. I had to go back in my training. Sometimes we have to go back to foundations. Sometimes we have to go back to basics. And these are very typical, very common sentences. Most of us have probably used them before, and I've probably been guilty of using them as well. And the reason I wanted to talk about it this morning is because I feel like it's very important. I know it's very important, and when we start talking about consciousness and we start talking about the language that we're using in reference to our horses, even though some of us or a lot of us may think, oh, you know, I'm going back to support the horse, I'm going back to my foundations to help the horse, and we see it technically we see it in a positive light. The fact is that nobody likes to go backwards. Nobody likes to say, oh, I had to go back to, year 10 to do something. I had to go back to something to repeat something. No one, through our lives, we're conditioned to think that going backwards is a negative thing. And sometimes it's necessary, and sometimes it is negative, so to speak, because no one really likes to repeat things. And I think that what we need to be aware of is with our horses and with our training, we're never really going back. We need to look at our training as a giant patchwork quilt. And so all the patches that we develop in our horses, all the tools, all the training, all the respect, all the citizenship drills, all the whatever program you're following, or methodology or philosophy or whatever it is that you're doing, we need to not think about it as a ladder, not think about it as a step by a set of stairs where the bottom step is foundation and then the next step is something else and the next step is something else. Of course, you need to do certain things before you do other things. You need to establish respect before you can move on to other things. So I'm not saying that some of your patchwork quilt doesn't come before the other, but what I'm saying is don't think of your foundations or your basics or whatever they are as the start or the beginning or something that we need to go back to. I was talking to my partner Phil about it the other day, and I said, it's kind of like we've been together for 12 years now, and it's kind of like us going on a date night or something like that, and me saying, oh, we had to go back to dating, as a negative thing, or we had to go back to that. Whereas it's not something you have to go back to, it's something that you do to maintain the relationship. And that's how we should be looking at our basics or our foundations with our horses. It's not something we have to go back to, it's something that we should be using on a continual basis to keep the horse confident, to keep the horse supple, to keep the horse mentally sound. I've got a saying, mental health before all else. So what we need to think about is that patch in the middle, that foundation patch of our patchwork quilt, isn't something to move beyond. Everybody thinks that basics are something to get past. I want to get past basics. I want to be advanced. I want to advance past the basics. You know, I've spoken to some of the greatest, I've been very blessed to chat with and speak to and visit with and train with some of the greatest horsemen and women in the world, and all of them are riding basics in their arena. You know, we all have this impression that they're in their arena doing canter pirouettes and all sorts of things, and they're not. They're in their arena doing lateral flexion. They're in their arena doing engaging exercises. They're doing hindquarter yields. They're doing quarters in. They're doing shoulder in. They're doing the basics that we're also desperately trying to move along, or also desperately trying to not go back to. And that's what they're doing, because that's how you maintain a great horse. That's how you maintain a horse that is strong in his body and strong in his mind and happy in his workload. So what I want to do is, the point of this video this morning is us bringing a consciousness to what words we're using about our horses, what words we're using when we feel like, oh, I needed to do some foundation work today. It's not going back. We're not going back to foundations. We're not going back to basics. We're using our tools. We're having a good conversation with our horse to keep him mentally fit, to keep him physically fit. And we're not going backwards at all. We're enhancing our horse. We're enhancing our relationship, and that goes through life as well. And that was just something I wanted to share this morning about taking into considerations or being aware of perhaps the language that we're using. And I know that a lot of people will say to me, oh, but I don't mean it negatively. I don't mean I'm going back to basics as a negative thing, because I know that's what the horse needs, and I think that's a positive thing. But at the end of the day, on a subconscious level, most of us are conditioned that going back or repeating grade 1 or 2, or, you know, repeating a year at school is a negative thing. So don't talk about your horse and your horsemanship as, I've got to go back to it. You know, I've got to, I do foundation work every single time that I ride, because I use my foundation skills as a warm-up, and that's how I keep my horses so well-rounded and so prepared for any advanced work that I do throw at them. We always warm up and cool down using our foundation exercises. So it's definitely not something that's at the bottom of the ladder, so to speak. So that's a little something I wanted to share with you. Good morning to everyone who has said good morning to me. I've seen a few comments roll on, and I will have a look at them when I finish the video. The camera's just a little bit far away from me, so I can't see what the comments are saying, but I really appreciate it. Anyone who is here at the Equine Symposium here on the Gold Coast, let me know, and I'll be sure to find you and say hello. I'm really looking forward to 3 days of learning, and how we are going to use it to improve our horses always. I'm so passionate about ongoing self-development and ongoing development for our horses, and I'm really excited to be here. So I hope everyone has a great week. It's midweek, it's hump day, so I hope you're all having a great week with your horses, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.